Hi, and welcome to the show where we share the stories of the many who intersect with our healthcare system but are rarely heard from. My name is Kevin Poe, founder and editor of Kevin MD. Today, we welcome back on the show Christopher Liu. He's a physician turned entrepreneur and investor, and he's the author of the book, How I Quit My Lucrative Medical Career and Achieved Financial Freedom Using Real Estate. And he wrote the Kevin MD article, What Does Blockchain Mean for Healthcare? Christopher, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Kevin. Really happy to be on the show. Thanks for having me back. It's been almost since June of last year, and I'm happy to contribute to the content.
Excellent. And yes, you were one of my first guests, and I've done almost 400 of these shows. So it's fantastic to have some repeat guests again. Now, for those who didn't get a chance to listen to your first show way back, can you just briefly share your story and journey to where you are today?
Yeah, definitely. As you said, I'm a physician. Now I'm full-time entrepreneur investor. I'm based out of the Houston, Texas Medical Center. And essentially, I went to Baylor for medical school, was part of the MD PhD program, got my PhD in bioengineering. And during my graduate school years was when I really started to delve full-time into entrepreneurship. So started to educate myself about financial freedom during medical school and started focusing on building my passive income streams during medical school. So by the age of 29 years old, it was my final year of medical school. I had reached financial independence and matched into orthopedic surgery. However, in 2008, I took a leap of faith to become a full-time investor and entrepreneur. So when the world markets were crashing, I was running towards fear. When everybody was running away from fear, I was running towards it. Started investing in single family residences. And from the years 2008 to 2016, amassed a financial real estate portfolio such that at 38 years old, I was financially set for the rest of my life. And so I really started this, my consulting journey back in 2017 after spending a year as a digital nomad so that I could create a platform where I could reach and inspire others to pursue their dreams, take risks, and pursue the dreams of entrepreneurship. So again, it was a really calculated and strategic risk, but it paid off huge in terms of financial rewards as well as time, freedom, and location independence. So I'm happy to answer questions from there.
Now, in making that transition from medicine to entrepreneurship, what would you say is the biggest challenge during that transition?
A lot of it is based on fear. So, in medicine, we're culturally conditioned to turn away from fear, to not take risks, to go with the herd. And so I really had to listen in, tune in, hone into my intuition, and really venture out. I had to go against what the crowd was saying, what the herd was saying. And like I said, in 2008, when the whole world was crashing, I was running towards it. And as you can see, 13 years later, it paid off. So really, my number one advice is really listen to your intuition. And sometimes you just have to take that leap because we only have one life to live.
Excellent. So let's transition now into the Kevin MD article. It's titled, What Does Blockchain Mean for Healthcare? And of course, blockchain has been in the news recently with Ethereum and Bitcoin, of course, and NFTs, non-fungible tokens. And I'm certainly interested in hearing the concept of blockchain as it applies to healthcare. But to get everyone on the same page, just give us a basic definition of what blockchain is, and then go ahead and summarize that article for those who didn't get a chance to read it.
So blockchain is essentially a ledger. So it's really good for things such as financial transactions, event recording events. And basically, the way I describe it to layman's terms is it's almost like the internet on steroids. So if you think about what the internet did in the early 2000s, how it dematerialized information, democratized it, how it changed the media, as well as the social media landscapes in a lot of industries. So blockchain is almost like that, except it's three-dimensional. So it's almost like the internet on steroids. And there's a couple of key features about the blockchain that make it really important, and also very has a lot of features that make it potential applications that have a lot of promise and potential. So, for example, one is it's decentralized, so it's not subject to forces of coercion. It's immutable, so it can't be changed. Other things is that in terms of interoperability, so it means that you can use it across different functions and platforms. So it has a lot of unique features that make it amenable to a lot of potential future applications.
So, as it applies to healthcare specifically, what do you see are some of the applications for blockchain?
So healthcare is really an interesting industry because it's very highly regulated and it's highly bureaucratic. So a lot of the effects of the blockchain are not going to be, in my opinion, aren't going to be seen until a few 10, 15 years later, just because of the massive amounts of regulation. But potential applications. So, for example, one is in supply chain management because the blockchain is a ledger, right? So you can use it potentially for the tracking as well as the logging of the supply chain as well. There's a lot of different applications in terms of pharmaceuticals, in terms of material supplies. A lot of physician entrepreneurs are working with the blockchain for easier physician credentialing and access. As we know, applying for licensure is an extremely cumbersome and time-consuming endeavor. So a lot of startups are looking into that realm. Other startups are also looking into how to use the blockchain for patient data, patient management, patient information, patient privacy, and how to incorporate all of these data assets and items into potential applications. So those are some of them. Again, this is a highly nascent field. So, there's not going to be a clear winner, and, the future is still, unbound. So the sky's the limit.
You mentioned regulatory burdens as one of the obstacles that's preventing blockchain from achieving its full potential in healthcare. Now, what do you see are some other obstacles that is really preventing blockchain from advancing in healthcare?
So, for example, a lot of the regulate for adoptability. So, it has to have reach a critical mass where people are readily accepting it and using it as a means for their application. So, mass adoption is huge. Second thing is trust and as well as so. In any sort of application, you have to have trust and you have to have it safeguards against fraud, waste, abuse. So those are some of them. But the main, like I said, because in any new nascent technology, usually it's going to be regulation, bureaucracy, as well as trust and authenticity.
There's a common saying that in healthcare, technology is always 5 to 10 years behind. And then there's just so many established players in the field who just like the status quo. If you take a look at electronic medical records, for instance, there's one particular company that has such a large share of that is probably unwilling to give that up. Now, do you see the status quo in healthcare being an impediment to those who want to adopt blockchain technology?
Yes, I actually do. So, we alluded to earlier some of the challenges to actually becoming an entrepreneur as a physician. So, really, the status quo is really one of the hurdles against any sort of innovation. Rightfully so, but also with regulation comes, hindrances to innovation. The thing is, with the COVID-19 pandemic, and we're seeing a lot of issues such as burnout and depression and mass exodus of early career physicians. It's no surprise that the healthcare industry is in crisis. So, as people start to generally waking up, which is why we're doing these podcasts, and start to really understand it, people will start questioning the status quo. So if you go on social media, there's a lot of physician influencers talking about financial freedom, innovation, all sorts of issues. So, but that's definitely one of them. And that's why, again, I share my story and my inspiration for becoming an entrepreneur and, becoming financially free at 38.
So I'm going to shift gears now and let's talk about that intersection between financial freedom and cryptocurrency, which of course the blockchain is a part of. Now, there's a lot of controversy as to whether cryptocurrency belongs in a typical clinician portfolio for financial freedom. So, as an investor yourself, what's your opinion in terms of cryptocurrency, and does it belong in a typical clinician financial portfolio?
It's an awesome question. I get that asked all the time. In my opinion, when I read in 2012, I read the white paper by Satoshi Nakamoto, and the where he talked about a decentralized and in digital money and a decentralized financial system, and that just spoke to me because I saw how the banks, stole from the mass from the 2008 crisis, and so from there I started buying Bitcoin when it was, in the pennies. It was more as a hobby, but now it's reached, almost a critical mass adoption with the Coinbase IPO. So the future is bright. I will say that cryptocurrency has transitioned from being extremely speculative. Now it's people are looking to Bitcoin as a hedge against the central bank printing 0% interest rates as well as the fractional reserve banking. So now people are looking at it as a storage of value and a hedge against future inflation. But that being said, short-term wise, there's going to be huge fluctuations. But in my book, long-term, I'm bullish on cryptocurrencies, not only as a storage of value, but also next is a medium of exchange. So actually paying for different types of services. And you're starting to see areas such as decentralized finance, non-fungible tokens. And so you're going to see a whole host of innovation in this field. But like I said, this is not advice. This is my own personal opinion. And so just do your own research.
Now, for those physicians who are interested in incorporating some cryptocurrency in their portfolio, what's the best way for them to do that?
So there's a number of ways. The easiest way is you can start a account with Coinbase. It's safe, it's trusted, it's regulated, and with their recent IPO, it's a huge milestone for the crypto community. So you can do Coinbase. There's a lot of other exchanges. You can do Kraken. There's Binance. But like I said, go with a safe, trusted, regulated brokerage and exchange, which in this case is Coinbase. But again, there's a lot of different ways. And the main disadvantage of Coinbase is their high fees. But again, those high fees go in the form of added protection and more regulation. So you're following the rules, and your money is a little bit safer.
In comparison to, say, a typical total market index fund, what kind of returns can you expect, and what kind of risks can you also expect from cryptocurrency?
I'll give you an example. So, for example, this year, my crypto portfolio is almost 5x right now since January. So you can see those types of returns. Again, those aren't like a typical index fund portfolio. 8 to 10%, maybe higher if you take risk. But again, these you can expect higher returns, but again, you also have to expect higher risk. So you can see the price of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies dropping drastically, 20% in a day, 10% in a day. So like I said, short term, there's going to be high volatility, but long term, I'm still bullish on the industry and on the future.
And knowing that this isn't financial advice, what proportion of a typical portfolio is reasonable for cryptocurrency?
Yeah, great question. I don't, for just the average novice person, 1 to 2%. Just to have exposure to it. I don't recommend 100%. I know there's people out there that have their entire portfolio in it. But like I said, this is a hedge. So hedge means that you're mitigating risk. So 1 to 2%. My crypto portfolio now is 10%, approaching 15%. But like I said, these are all personal decisions, and do your own research.
Now, I have physicians ask me about NFTs or non-fungible tokens, and they're based on the Ethereum network. And some of them ask me, should I invest in Ethereum because it actually has more use than, say, Bitcoin? Bitcoin is really just used as a store of value. So what's your thoughts on that?
So I think the Ethereum platform is awesome for future applications. So all of the future applications that you mentioned are all based on the Ethereum platform. The interesting thing about Ethereum is that they're going to transition to Ethereum 2.0 because of the high gas fees, and it's a lot faster, but the fees are a lot higher. So now they're trying to innovate on the platform to make it a lot cheaper in terms of fees. This is what I've most recently observed with the price of Bitcoin versus Ethereum is that the price of Bitcoin is actually topped, around 60,000, and it drops, and it ranges between 50 to 60. But a lot of, because of the investors and speculators that are looking for growth are now turning to Ethereum. So Ethereum back in early January was like 900, and now it's almost 3,400 last I checked. So if you're looking for growth, Ethereum is the next thing. But like I said, you expect wide fluctuations because it's a very nascent field.
We're talking to Christopher Liu. He's a physician turned entrepreneur and investor. He wrote the Kevin MD article, What Does Blockchain Mean for Healthcare? Now, for those physicians who are interested in reading more about blockchain and cryptocurrencies as it relates to not only healthcare, but their own personal portfolios as well, what kind of resources can you recommend?
Well, there's a lot of great books out there right now. So one great fantastic resource is called the Bitcoin Standard. It's a book, and it's actually talking about fundamentals and economics of the central banking, fractional reserve banking, interest rates, and how Bitcoin fits into it. So it's a fantastic book. It's not a speculator's book. It's more of a fundamental book. A lot of podcasts are out there, so you can go to YouTube. Michael Saylor is a great person I recommend. I've listened to him. One of his podcasts was 2 hours long, and I got so much information and gems from there. So with the internet, democratizing access to information, now it's so easy to get information and inspiration. So definitely check those out. But it's a fascinating field, and I'm really excited for the future.
And my final question, what's your take-home message that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience?
Take risks, take mitigated risks, take calculated and strategic, and always challenge the status quo, because the status quo is based on the industrial age, but right now we're in the information age. So things are changing, and follow your gut and your intuition, but always think about cost, benefit, and risk. So I hope that helped, and I'm excited for the future.
Christopher, thank you again for coming back on the show, and thanks again for your time and insight.
Thanks so much, Kevin. I appreciate our time together.